Good evening. Welcome to this Good Friday service of Tenebrae. Tenebrae is a Latin word that means shadows or gloom or darkness. The Good Friday service of Tenebrae, one of the oldest Holy Week traditions, is intended to remind us of the darkest moment in human history. On the cross, Jesus, the Christ, Emmanuel, became the willing victim of all the dark forces that lurk in the human soul. And the light of the world was, for a time, snuffed out. As we recall the 7 last words of Christ from the cross, we extinguish a candle after the reading of each passage and dim the lights until we are left in darkness, the darkness of the tomb. Following the removal of the last candle comes the closing of the book, signifying that with the death of Jesus, a chapter in human history has ended. The service of shadows is, to say the least, very somber, a very somber time of remembrance. There's nothing joyful or hopeful about it. There was neither joy nor hope at the crucifixion. And that's the point. We more fully appreciate the joy, hope, and light of resurrection when we have stared into the abyss of despair, hopelessness, and darkness. It's dark tonight. May the light of Easter morning shine even more brightly for you because you have faced the darkness of this Friday night. I invite you to stand as you're able, as together we read the words of Psalm 21, a psalm of lament. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why so far from saving me, so far from the words of my groaning? My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, but I find no rest. Yet you are the Holy One, enthroned on the praises of Israel. Our ancestors put their trust in you. They trusted, and you rescued them. They cried out to you, and were delivered. They trusted in you, and were not put to shame. But as for me, I am a worm and not human, scorned by all and despised by the people. All who see me laugh to scorn. They curl their lips, they shake their heads. Trust in the Lord. Let the Lord deliver. Let God rescue him if God so delights in him. Yet you are the one who drew me forth from the womb and kept me safe on my mother's breast. I have been entrusted to you ever since I was born. You were my God when I was still in my mother's womb. But not from me, for trouble is near, and there is no one to help. Many young bulls encircle me. Strong bulls of Bashan surround me. They open wide their jaws at me like a slashing and roaring lion. I am poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart within my breast is melting wax. My strength is dried up like a potsherd. My tongue clings to the roof of my mouth, and you have laid me in the dust of death. Packs of dogs close me in. A band of evildoers circles around me. They pierce my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones while they stare and gloat. They divide my garments among them. For my clothing they cast lots. But you, O Lord, be not far away. O my help, hasten to my aid. Deliver me from the sword, my life from the power of the dog. Save me from the lion's mouth. From the horns of wild bulls you have rescued me. I invite you to be seated. A reading from Isaiah. See, my servant shall prosper. He shall be exalted and lifted up and shall be very high. Just as there were many who were astonished at him, so marred was his appearance beyond human semblance and his form beyond that of mortals. So he shall startle many nations. Kings shall shut their mouths because of him. For that which had not been told them, they shall see, and that which they had not heard, they shall contemplate. Who has believed what we have heard, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by others, a man of suffering and acquainted with infirmity, and as one from whom others hide their faces. He was despised, and we held him of no account. Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases. Yet we accounted him stricken, struck down by God, and afflicted. He was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the punishment that made us whole, and by his bruises we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have all turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By a perversion of justice he was taken away. Who could have imagined his future? For he was cut off from the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. They made his grave with the wicked and his tomb with the rich. Although he had done no violence and there was no deceit in his mouth, yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him with affliction. When you make his life an offering for sin, he shall see his offspring and shall prolong his days. Through him the will of the Lord shall prosper. Out of his anguish he shall see. He shall find satisfaction through his knowledge. The righteous one, my servant, shall make many righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will allot him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out himself to death and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many and made intercession for the transgressors. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Jesus is the soul of forgiveness. He teaches us to pray, "Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us." When he healed the paralytic, he told him his sins were forgiven. He tells us, "Do not judge, so you will not be judged. Do not condemn, so you will not be condemned. But forgive, and you will be forgiven." 70 times 7, he told us to forgive. But he himself has nothing to be forgiven for, except perhaps for telling the truth in a world where truth is a very dangerous thing. And on this dark afternoon, when they have humiliated him in a kangaroo court, when they have condemned him with lies and false accusations, when they have paraded him before puppet magistrates who wash their hands of his fate, when soldiers have spat in his face, beat him with their fists, whipped him within an inch of death, forced him to carry the instrument of his own torture up the hill, then driven iron spikes into his wrists and feet to fasten him to the cross. When they have done all this and hung him out to die in an agony of slow suffocation, the first words he utters from the cross are, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." It is a fitting motto for our human race. It is a prayer that should always be on our lips. Father, forgive us. We know not what we do.
Two thieves are being crucified with Jesus, one on either side of him. One of them mocks him, saying, "If you are the Christ, save yourself and us." The other, with a finer sense of justice, rebukes the first thief. "We're here because we're guilty," he says, "but this man has done nothing to deserve this." Then, perhaps sensing that some deeper power is at work in this dark moment, he says, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." We cannot guess what it cost Jesus to reply. We cannot begin to imagine what kind of pain he endures as he pushes all his weight against the spike in his feet so that he might raise himself enough to gather his breath and speak. But that's what he does. And when he speaks a promise. Could there be any greater grace than this? Could there be any greater grace than for a condemned, dying person to hear him say, "Truly, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise"?
Jesus did not begin his ministry of preaching and teaching until he was 30 years old. This may have been because Joseph had died, and Jewish custom demanded that he should provide for his widowed mother until his 30th birthday. After that, he was free to pursue his own way. He had probably taken care of her for years, and now, from the cross, as he gasps for every breath and slowly bleeds out his life, he takes care of her again. Seeing the disciple he loves standing next to his mother, he creates for them both a new relationship. He makes the beloved disciple his mother's guardian and protector. Tradition tells us that Mary stayed with this disciple until she died some years later in his house in Ephesus. The beloved disciple and Mary cared for each other faithfully the rest of their earthly days, because from the cross, Jesus now says, "Woman, here is your son." And to his beloved friend he says, "Here is your mother."
We say that God is omniscient, that God knows everything. And why not? God made the heavens and the earth, the cosmos, the universe. God made human beings. God knows us inside and out, for in some mysterious way, we are made in God's own image. God reads the human heart and knows all its longings and desires, its pain and fear. God is the supreme psychologist. But there was one thing God did not know. God did not know what it felt like to be human. God did not know what it felt like to experience human frailty, human hunger, human stress and tension, human depression, human joys, human warmth, human fear. The whole gamut of human feelings as we experience them in our sensitive human bodies. God understood all these things, but God had not felt them. That is why God became human in Jesus Christ, so that God might truly know everything. In Jesus, God experienced every human emotion and feeling as humans experience them. And one of the darkest things that God learned, one of the most painful things that Jesus experienced, is what it feels like to be utterly alone. What it feels like when all your friends have deserted. Jesus learned, God learned, what it feels like when it seems that even God has abandoned you. Here is a great and powerful mystery. Because of this moment on the cross, God is with us even when we feel utterly God-forsaken. At some time in each of our lives, we have cried out in anguish because at some dark moment in every human life we have, every one of us, felt utterly abandoned and hung out to dry. The words of the psalmist have echoed in our souls through all of the centuries of our existence. Anyone who doubts that Jesus was fully human, anyone who wants to think of him as a purely spiritual being, somehow removed from human pain, needs only to listen to these words to see how wrong that picture is. Jesus knows the darkest fear that lurks in every human breast. Jesus knows despair. He cries out in the eternal question in a voice so loud it reverberates and bounces through all of heaven and earth, through all of human history, and in our own fearful hearts. Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani? My God, why have you forsaken me? And now there is only one thing left for God to learn, and that lesson is very near. Now God will learn what it feels like to die.
He has been bleeding for hours. The fluids in his body are rampaging in a frenzied attempt to cushion deep bruises and a clot gaping wounds. The scourging alone, being whipped with a barbed flail that has made the white of his ribs visible through his back. The scourging alone is enough to make serious demands on his body's reserves of water. And now there are the nails and the fight against gravity and his body's valiant attempt to protect his heart, liver, and kidneys. And now the one who told the woman at the well that he was living water, that no one who drank of that living water would ever thirst, the one who transformed the waters of chaos into waters of adoption in his baptism, the one who changed water into wine so his friends would not be embarrassed at their wedding, the one who spoke all water into existence. He begs for a single drink. They bring him vinegar on a sponge when he whispers, "I thirst."
It's nearly over now. Jesus is a strong man, a carpenter, a construction worker. He is a strong-spirited man, filled, in fact, with the Holy Spirit. But his human spirit can only endure so much. It is time to give up the ghost. Time to let go. There is only one person in the universe whom he can trust with his very life as he lets that life go. And so he gives himself up to that one, saying, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit."
It's over now. There is no fight left in him, no will to survive, no will at all, except the will to complete his mission, to suffer, and in his suffering, to absorb all suffering, to die, and in his death, to absorb all death. And now that is done. The light of the world is extinguished, and in the eerie darkness that has descended over him, over everyone and everything, he finds the strength to whisper 3 last words as his life bleeds away. It is finished.